part 6, chapter 6, Given and Chosen Kinship. In the room in the story, Kinship is Sanctuary, Solidarity, and Power in Birth. Um, so we have a nice group of people. Thank you for joining. We are recording, so I guess I'm going to go ahead and start because I appreciate everybody joining on time. So here we go. Hopefully you can see the screen. Um, and I'm not going to be able to see your faces while I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully it'll pop up. So if you do have a question and I don't see your hand raised or the question in the chat, feel free to come off of mute and talk. But again, thank you for joining today. You, Me, and Sacred Birth, a virtual book reading and Q&A series, session 6, chapter 6, Given and Chosen Kinship in the room in the story, Kinship as Sanctuary, Solidarity, and Power. I want to say a special shout out to one of the hosts, The Educated Birth, which is owned by Cheyenne Varner. She is a mommy, wifey. Um, she has 2 little ones. I think tonight she can't join because of orientation for her. I think the oldest is it kindergarten or pre-K? But she is the owner of the Educated Birth. She is the first person for me. I met her in 2018, October, at Decolonizing Birth Conference, where she was the first person to show different hues of Black women um, in her art and her illustrations, but also she does anatomical illustrations. So I remember in my medical textbook, as well as in the books for residency as OBGYN, we will look at anatomy and there's a particular, um, what do I call it? Like a particular perspective of a plane of looking at the body. So if you were to take the body and cut the body like in half and open it up, that's called a sagittal view. She was the first person whose illustration of the body, the anatomy of a pregnant person, from the skin color to broad noses to kinky curly hair to a Black fetus inside of a pregnant body. I had never seen that before. So I know there's a lot of credit that goes to a medical student who's now a physician, but actually Cheyenne started that as a doula. She's a graphic artist and a photographer. So please check out her work at www.theeducatedbirth.com. And their slogan, we support you as you support parents with inclusive teaching tools for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Again, for the participation part, we utilize Mentimeter. So if you can go to a separate browser or pull out a smart device and go to www.menti.com and use the code that's on the screen. On every slide, at the top of the slide, you will always find the link information and the code. It's also in the chat. And I also want to give a shout out to Julia Scott, who is my marketing and tech consultant who will be helping me today. So if you, she will also continue to put things in the chat as people join so they can actually see the link, but also it will always be at the top of the slide. So menti.com. And as you log in, I can actually see the number of people in the right-hand corner here. So go, please, if you can, go ahead and go to that link on your phone or browser and enter the code because we're going to start doing some interaction. So I recognize people here from different parts of the country, so thank you very much. We're going to start off. So this is Mentimeter, real-time data visualization, data interpretation, analysis, all at one time. You can use a word cloud, multiple choice questions, ranking, open-ended questions. So as a practice, if you can use 2-letter state abbreviations to tell us where you are physically located. And thank you, first responder for Pennsylvania. Um, Thank you, Illinois. Yes, I saw you. Hi, Miss Angel. But yeah, I'm going to keep going, but this will be open for the whole time that we're talking. And this just allows me to interact with you all and you to interact with me and that we can see everything together as you participate. So one of the prompts is, I woke up today feeling grateful for, and this is an open-ended question, so you can write whole phrases, you can use one word. For me, I woke up feeling grateful for honestly being in my right mind and being able to walk. I did my daily walk and did 5 miles this morning. And the temperature is like 30 degrees lower than what it has been. So it's nice to be outside walking and not baking to death. Um, and thank you, first responder. They woke up feeling grateful for their baby niece. I got to see my niece over the weekend, which is also Julia, for my mother's 80th birthday dinner that we had. Got to see two of my nieces. They are the best. So yes, as you participate, your response will come on the screen. I can see in the corner that there are 4 people who have logged in. Thank you for the second responder. And again, this is just to get you acclimated to how I utilize Mentimeter during any of my talks, my presentations, and training, so that um, everyone has this way of like participating, even if they don't want to speak, and it's anonymous, unless you tell us that was me that wrote that. And I'll just review those things as the responses come up. So thank you for sharing. I woke up feeling grateful for coffee and its ability to fuel my creativity this morning. Absolutely. And I'm going to keep going for time's sake. So here's a question that asks, what is your primary role in your daily work? So I'm kind of forcing you to pick a response because I made the options. The next question will be open-ended, so you can actually describe. And for those who are not working, you can put my role is not listed. So when we get to the open-ended question, you can say, I'm happily retired. Because I believe there's some retirees on the line. But yes, just to get a sense of what your primary role, how you would describe it. Are you an advocate, administrator, practitioner, researcher, or your role is not listed? And again, as I said, with Mentimeter, you have you have real-time data collection, interpretation, you have analysis, and I can present or visualize that data to you. So I picked this bar graph, and you can see by percentages. And so we have advocates, administrators, and then my role is not listed. So another way to elicit the response from people is to now you can ask, you can answer this open-ended question where you can describe what your primary role is in your work life. And for people who picked the other, is your opportunity to add some words to that. And for those who are not working, you can put happily retired or traveler. And you can use as few or as many words as you like. There is a character limit, but I cannot recall what it is. But as you keep typing, it'll just keep moving you along. So you'll end up having 2 responses if you do type a lot. Um, Anyone wants to share? Thank you, first responder. Yes, I knew someone would say it, happily retired. Anyone else want to respond about your primary role in your daily work life? Thank you for responding. I am a nurse advocating for trauma-informed standard of perinatal care through education, research, and my bedside practice. Thank you so much. Another person currently taking a break from doula work and doing book selling. All right, thank you, thank you. And more responses, thank you. I am a healthcare administrator. Awesome, so I'll go to the next one. Okay, why are you joining us today? You can be as brief or as long or as simple or as complex as you want to share your response, but it allows us to get a sense of what motivates you to be here. I am joining because this is my offering to the public that doesn't require any money, where I can still interact with people or with my book who may not have already purchased the book. But it is a series. It's a session, part 6 of 8. Each session represents a chapter, and all of the prior recordings of the past 5 chapters or readings are on YouTube. So I'll make sure we put the link in the chat box as well. And so I'm here just to engage to um, provide additional information about this particular chapter and hope that you will share the information that you learn with other people and that you will compel others to join the next session, but also to purchase the book. So thank you for responding. Interested in to interact with you about your book. Thank you. Community and growth. Thank you. Supporting my chaos. Yes, and all the work she does for me. Thank you. Yes, there's some people on here who've known me for over 30 years. One of my friends is on here, but there's also people who've known me since I was like an intern in residency. And so I'm just really glad for all of you all being here today. I want to promote the book when I do interviews. I'm a retired OB. Hi, I know this person too. So I really appreciate all of you all being here. The next question. So today's session, of course, is in the room, in the story, kinship as sanctuary, solidarity, and power in birth. And so I am asking you now, when you think about the word family, can you tell me what one word comes to mind? Thank you, first responder. So if you can use one word, that would be great because the data or your responses are going to be shared with you in the form of a word cloud. So if you all happen to choose the same word without telling each other, then that word will be the largest word that's in the center, and words that are not used as frequently are still of value and they will be around that word. So right now you see how comfort, thank you, first responder was in the center. Now love is, that means that out of the three people who now responded, someone else picked love. So love is now in the center. Thank you for responding. So we have continuation. And you can participate, I think, as often as you want. So, what other one word comes to mind when describing family? And I'll wait to see if anyone else has another word they want to share. Supporters, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to keep going, and this session will be open for 48 hours. So, if you want to come back to this, you always can. Now, identify one word that comes to mind when thinking about family present during childbirth in hospital settings. What word comes to mind when thinking about family present during childbirth in hospital settings? Thank you, first responder, for natural, absolutely rules. Yes. So whatever that one word is, right? So, because we are different people with different experiences and perspectives, your one word may be about the family, it may be about the system, it may be about the environment. So, just whatever one word that comes to mind when thinking about family present during childbirth and hospital settings. So, we have natural, we have security, we have rules. Absolutely. Any other one word comes to mind? Support. Yes. And I'll wait a little bit longer. Any other one word that comes to mind when thinking about family present during childbirth and hospital settings? And again, you don't have to be nice about this. Like you can use, whatever really comes to mind, you can also put that word on there. Even if it's a little explicative cuss word, you can put the first letter, some exclamation mark, because the work that I'm going to be talking about that's in my book is not always right. A touchy-feely or positive or comfortable experience. Okay, so now, excuse, I forgot to pee off the word kinship, but in your own words, describe the meaning of given and chosen kinship. And in your own words, what does given and chosen kinship mean? And again, this is not necessarily about being right or wrong. This is about your perspective. What does that word kinship, what does chosen kinship, what does given kinship mean, just to you in your own words? Thank you for responding. So supportive and friends, family, your personal community, commune, those those we choose to trust and do life with. Absolutely. So yes, it was very important for me to be really responsive and like socially, culturally responsive to the experiences, expectations, and expressions of Black mothers and birthing people who described the types of individuals and communities showing up for them in labor. And so, yeah, for they were naming people who were blood related to them, right? They're given family through biology. And then there's also the families that we choose, right? Um, through kind of this form of like these social ties that did not come through, being through blood ties, whether it's through marriage, which would be social because those people aren't biologically connected, um, or through, birth or through people's cousins and all of that. So the people you choose to call your family or they've chosen you to be a part of their family. I have an extended chosen kinship. Some people on the call right now, as well as my own given kinship who is on the line as well. So, yes, it was important for me to, the reason why sacred is spelled with the K is because I think it was called social network and social organizing. I think that was the word. Used to be a part of the A in sacred, which was autonomy. But as I continued to listen to the stories and reread the transcripts from the focus groups and the interviews, I dissociated kinship from autonomy and actually made it its own independent quality domain because of how Black mothers and birthing people leverage their given and chosen kinship relationships or their ties through either their partner, their baby, their mother, so the maternal grandmother, through their aunts, through their sisters or siblings, through friends, through community birth workers, or through other Black women physicians who are not working at the hospital but that they called upon to help protect them. Kinship is definitely a mechanism, not only a relationship, but a mechanism by which Black mothers and birthing people were able to assert themselves, that they were able to actualize their safety and accountability, their autonomy. They were able to optimize communication and information. Um, they were able to withstand or resist or refuse acts of anti-Black racism or misogynoir. They were able to curate empathy and humanity and dignity and Blackness and holistic care. So those are the other quality domains of sacred. And so I made K a part of sacred because kinship was so very important for Black mothers and birthing people and how they um, asserted themselves and how they were protected and how they were shielded and how kinship also served as a literal like sanctuary for them in the midst of birthing in the hospital. So here's another image. Um, so based upon what your definitions or your meanings of kinship and what I shared about kinship as it relates to this book, how does kinship affirming care show up during hospital births? So this practice of asking how does things show up is um, a reflection of the work that I do in this book. So I would ask Black mothers and birthing people to like define, right, these concepts or these behaviors or this language. And then I would ask them to go from the meaning of it to its manifestation, right? So we must be able to identify like the shared language that we use to give meaning or power to words, but also in the quality and patient safety space. The only way one can change something is one has to be able to name it, one has to be able to give it meaning or define it, and then one has to be able to measure it. So, in measuring kinship, the question then becomes in practice, how does kinship affirming care show up during hospital births? Because if we can know how it shows up, the various ways, then we can develop tools to measure, to monitor it, and then to protect it, right? To ensure that it's happening. So thank you, first responder. And the second responder. So for you all, kinship affirming care shows up as flexible visiting policies throughout the care spectrum, yes. As well as being surrounded by love and a nurturing and caring environment, absolutely. Support and protection of preferences and needs, yes. So these are all examples of how kinship, right, can show up, kinship affirming care. And thank you for responding again. One way kinship affirming care shows up during hospital births is through having the given and chosen family reiterate the birth plan. Absolutely. Yes, there are so many ways that kinship affirming care can be just standard of care, can really be the basis of high quality, equitable, participatory care. And we also know there are ways in which kinship negating or disruptive kinship care occurs, which is mostly what we see happening in hospitals across the country. So here's another kind of question. In your own, way, how would you describe ways that Black mothers and birthing people ensure or can make sure that clinical teams include and involve their given and chosen kin during hospital births? What are some of the ways that Black mothers and birthing people can make sure that clinical teams include and involve given and chosen kin during hospital births? Thank you, first responder. Black mothers and birthing people can have clinical teams explain to them procedures being done. Yes. Vet the hospital and the doc. Yes. Yes. Right. There's you can either call it gossip, you can call it folklore, you can call it stories, but we know in our communities, we know when certain physicians are working, especially those who are hospitalists or are taking call. And, I do have families that have come in to say that they choose which time to come into the hospital, even they know the nurse's schedule, who's going to be on, because people are trying to, leverage the knowledge that they have and the wisdom that they have to make better decisions around which environment is going to be protective, that's going to be promoting the involvement, the inclusion of kin, whether they be given or chosen. Thank you for responding to this one. For this response, so people can call out unsupportive practices and policies and demand more. Yeah. And one of I don't think I talk about it in this one. I think it was in the safety chapter. But consider this, right? There are these norms and narratives that say that Black fathers aren't involved in the lives of their children or in their households or even in birth. And can you imagine having that be the premise of how one sees Black families, particularly Black fathers? And then you have Black fathers in the hospital who are present and wanting to do skin to skin with their baby, and to actually have a nurse reach out their hands, right? Reach their hands out to take the baby out of the Black father's hands and say, we don't do that here. But there's complaints that Black men aren't involved. And so um, that's why it was very important for me to have a kinship domain, because I needed to and honor and validate what Black mothers were saying as part of the violations of their safety, of quality, or behaviors like this, where these kinship disruptive behaviors. So another response, self-advocacy, having an additional support person like a doula, emphasis on the birth plan, the mom IDs the care circle early, yes, chooses to include partners and parents and aunties and doulas and chosen family, ask each person to accept a clear role, such as a primary support. Yes, these are all the things the Black mothers birthing people are telling me, but how many quality instruments, how many quality improvement strategies, how many validated measures of safety do you know include kinship as a key performance indicator? As of today, I have the only scale that includes kinship, right, as a measure of hospital performance around quality. Even the people who, I forget, there was a group of people from, is it the agency? I can never say it's ARC agency. Is it of or on Health Research and Quality, AHRQ? They were doing some type of systematic, I think, yes, systematic review of like the latest validated measures of perinatal quality. And they decided not to use my scale because they're like, well, maybe the humanity scale would make sense, but the kinship and the racism scale, that's not like accept these are not acceptable measures of quality. So my scale didn't get included in the systematic review. So I'm just sharing these things to let you all know that, right, those values, those behaviors and practices that we deem important, right, are not being translated um, as of importance in measuring quality and safety by those in power who determine what quality and safety is. Also, insurance companies. How many times do you see kinship be a way for a hospital to determine if they're going to reimburse care or not based on how well or how poorly a hospital activates, affirms, and amplifies kinship? So these are things to consider in your work or in your conversations with people is that, we keep saying we want to be person focused, patient centered. So if we are, why are we not creating quality frameworks, quality measures that are actually truly driven by the patients, by the community, by families? We're almost at the end of this part, and I'll read. Identify one word that comes to mind when describing Black family. So the first time I asked this was what one word comes to mind when describing family. So now I'm asking what one word comes to mind when describing Black families. Thank you, first responder. I love it. Revolutionary, powerful. And again, my book is based on 36 Black mothers and birthing people. That's why I asked about Black families. This does not mean that other families are revolutionary, loving, and powerful, but my particular work is looking at Black mothers and birthing people. And when I do this work, I usually ask about one word that comes to mind when describing Black mothers and birthing people. And then I wait to the end to say Black mothers are birthing people. And one can see, and I've been doing this for the last 6 years, that when I say mother or birthing person, people say powerful and beautiful and loving, all these very life affirming positive words. And once I go to adding Black, it becomes vulnerable and sick and risk, all these life negating words. So I just wanted to see what this group was like, but I have a very unique group today. So thank you very much for just showing up the way you are and disproving the norms around, those words or attitudes and feelings that we assign value to when describing Black families. So thank you. I think the rest of the questions are just like, who are you? I put them at the end. So just when you're doing survey design, the sensitive questions go at the end so that I can get you to answer all the other questions. So again, what is your primary racial identity? I do center blackness, because in so many spaces we are not centered. So, and in most of the work that's done in public health and research, there are groups that are usually the default group. And so therefore we get othered. So in this space, I want to center racial identity around being Black or non-Black, multiracial Black or non-Black, multiracial non-Black. And so thank you for responding. And the next question is around ethnicity. Do you identify as Hispanic or Latin A? And I'm going to just keep going. This will stay open. And the next question is just how do you describe your gender? And for the purposes of these options, there's gender non-conforming, non-binary, gender queer, or gender fluid. For women, that is trans or cisgender women. For men, trans or cisgender men, and my gender identity is not on the list. So thank you for participating. I'm now going to go into the book. Does anyone have any comments or questions or reflections they want to share before I read for like 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes? And then we'll have a Q&A. And also, as I'm reading, again, you can post your comments and questions as I'm reading so you don't have to like forget them. And if you use the Mentimeter, then we all can see them. I can see them clearly because I can't see the chat. But does anybody have any thoughts or questions, any feelings or any responses to that activity that we just did? No? Sure. Okay. Well, I'm going to start. So I'm starting with chapter 6, Given and Chosen Kinship. I'm going to read hopefully for like 25 minutes. I do have a stopping place, but I want to get to the part I'm going to. I start off reading the beginning of every chapter because the beginning of every chapter starts with a narrative, but then it also goes into the definitions of that domain. So, sacred birth, sacred is the acronym for 7 theorized quality domains. So we're on the sixth chapter now. In this book, I did rearrange them a little bit. So the first chapter and the end chapter, kind of like the introductions, I and conclusions of the work. And so chapters 2 through 7 are the domains. So for kinship, I will start with a narrative, then I go into how the 36 Black mothers and birthing people helped me to provide meaning to that domain, as well as how it shows up, so how to measure it. And then I continue to interpret the narratives that were shared in the focus groups through that lens. I have some dialogue and some one-liners and some narratives, and I explain behaviors and language and practices and policies in the hospital setting that relate to being kinship affirming or kinship negating or disrupting kinship. So here we go. And then after the baby was born, actually, they had to take her away because they had me on a diet for so long that she didn't have any sugar. So she was shaking when she came out. So I was mad about that. So I started crying because I asked him, I want to follow her. I don't want them to mix up my baby or anything. Just go as soon as she came out. So I started crying because why was I on a diet this whole time? So the first night I didn't sleep with her. I gave birth at 10:30 a.m. and I didn't see my baby until like 6 p.m. Yes. And I started crying because I had to breastfeed her. And then there was no bond or anything. So I was like, I'm going to get up and walk to her room. And they came and they drove me there and everything. The whole time I was crying because she was all hooked up and everything, and she had to spend the night there. And the first thing that they tried to give her was formula. Oh, but she needs the sugar right now. And then I said, why did you guys have me on a diet for so long if she needed that sugar? Take a moment to feel the psychological and physical suffering of a Black mother separated from her newborn baby at birth, not by family policing systems or law enforcement, but by hospital nurses and physicians from the labor and delivery unit, the neonatal intensive care unit, the NICU, or the special care nursery, without the involvement of family policing systems. Imagine your obstetricians medicalizing and pathologizing your reproducing body, pregnancy, and fetal development, and then assigning a classification of a higher risk to your pregnancy experience. As a result, the obstetric team mobilizes to compel you to modify your diet throughout your entire pregnancy as a preventive measure to mitigate this higher risk and curtail any adverse maternal, fetal, and placental sequelae. Thus, you submit to the medicalization and the pathologization of your reproducing body, pregnancy, and birth. Unfortunately, you find out at the birth of the baby you vowed to love, nurture, nourish, and protect that your restrictive diet resulted in inappropriately lowering the blood sugars in your baby's blood below normal after physiological separation of you and your newborn through the clamping of the umbilical cord. Your decision to comply with medical advice led to an actual pathological response and condition in your newborn baby, leading to the admission of your newborn baby into the NICU. In this situation, the medical advice and care provided to you by your obstetrician and prenatal health team resulted in an unexpected subsequent diagnosis and adverse response in your newborn that then required higher resource care and a NICU admission. The phenomenon under interrogation can be classified as one of three types of iatrogenesis, as explained in greater detail in Chapter 2. In this specific circumstance, iatrogenesis was previously described as any noxious, unintended, and undesired effect of the actual treating physician. Illich, or ALLICH, described three types of iatrogenesis. One, clinical, the direct harm done by various medical treatments. Two, social, the medicalization of ordinary life. And three, cultural, the loss of traditional ways of dealing with and making sense of suffering, death, pain, and sickness. The opening Black narrative describes Dominique's response when she found out that her restricted diet led to clinical iatrogenesis, impacting her newborn's health and requiring parent-child separation to stabilize her newborn's blood sugar levels. Dominique's narrative is shared repeatedly throughout the various chapters as manifestations of hospital acts that actualize or violate different Black mother identified and defined obstetric quality care domains in the sacred birth framework. Given the evidence in her experiential knowledge shared during the 2019 focus groups, she never revealed the exact diagnosis given to her by the obstetrician that required her to restrict her dietary intake. Thus, the obstetrician's undetermined diagnosis and subsequent specific therapeutic intervention of diet and caloric restrictions resulted in newborn hypoglycemia at birth, inappropriately lower than normal blood sugars for a newborn baby. Based on the interpretation of her experiential knowledge, the hospital then facilitated the clinical, social, and cultural iatrogenesis. Then the iatrogenesis, independent of type, ultimately led to unplanned Black mother child separation, which then catalyzed a series of quality violations when quality is defined for, by, and with Black mothers in equitable and dignified partnerships with Black women community and content experts. For this chapter's purpose, unplanned or undesired Black parent child separation at birth is one of 6 themes or manifestations of how hospitals recognize and respond to given or chosen kinship. Unplanned or undesired Black parent child separation is an event that can occur as a consequence of decisions made by the hospital system, team, or individual clinician or staff that leads to the removal of the baby from the birthing parent, the supportive parent, or both for prolonged periods of time with no regard to the impact on parent, child, or parent child bonding. When kinship is defined and discussed within the constructs of the 7 patient identified domains of the sacred birth framework, the focus of analysis is the role of an individual hospital administrator, nurse, or physician, hospital teams, or the hospital system, like a policy or practice, in facilitating the denial, exclusion, or disruption of given or chosen relationships or relationship affirming activities that involve the Black mother or birthing person and their new child, existing child, or children, their partner or partners, their parent or parents, the grandparents, their siblings, other family members, friends, community doula, community midwife, and other birth workers in the community, like a birth educator or lactation educator. When kinship disruptions or violations involve parent child separation after childbirth, the focus and analysis will be based on the evidence presented in the narratives of 36 Black mothers in Oakland and Los Angeles, which does not involve child protective services or other family policing systems such as social workers, case managers, mental health behavioral specialists, law enforcement, or hospital security. In returning to the opening Black narrative detailing Dominique's experience of kinship disruption, specifically unanticipated and undesired parent child separation due to neonatal hypoglycemia, imagine the scene not in a birthing hospital in Oakland, but on a plantation in the Deep South during the antebellum period. Now, reread the opening narrative from the perspective of an enslaved Black woman who had just given birth in the slave's quarters. Imagine giving birth and the plantation owner or overseer immediately snatching your newborn baby from your arms, disrupting your capacity to hold, body feed, bond, know, love, and see your own baby. Now your newborn baby is chained and constrained by various tubes in a box that prohibits you from touching and tending to your baby's needs as their biological birth and social mother. You can no longer exercise your right to independently nurture and nourish your own baby. The situation, the experience caused you unplanned, undesired, and unnecessary psychological torture It also includes an element of physical suffering as your mind, heart, spirit, and body yearn to establish physical, emotional, and spiritual attachments to your baby that are now forbidden. And the actions and the policies of the individual obstetrician, the prenatal health team, the hospital labor and delivery team, and the hospital neonatology pediatric team go unaddressed. To date, the obstetric quality and patient safety paradigms in the U.S. lack any shared meaning, measurement, monitoring, reporting, or mitigation standards, structures, or strategies for the role of recognizing, affirming, protecting, including, and maintaining kinship in establishing or facilitating obstetric quality or patient safety. Moreover, hospital performance and reimbursement for maternity care in the United States exclude a measure of affirming or disrupting kinship ties between the mother, the birthing parent, and the newborn baby, partners, and other individuals or communities recognized by the mother or birthing parent. Given the historical and contemporary acts of violence in the United States enacted against Black mothers and birthing people and their Black reproducing bodies to destabilize, disrupt, and dismantle Black families, the absence of a kinship measure in the evaluation of obstetric quality in existing improvement and implementation initiatives feels ahistorical, atheoretical, unethical, irresponsible, and unscientific. To date, the obstetric quality and patient safety literature lacks a shared meaning and measurement of kinship in the provision of hospital based obstetric care. Based on the lived experiences of 36 Black mothers, the shared meaning of kinship includes the following elements. Number one, acknowledgement, affirmation, activation, and amplification of Black mother identified given or biological and chosen or social family relationships and roles by making space for kinship in the form of a live person at the bedside or by technology such as a partner, parent, chosen or given family, friend, or birth professional such as a doula, community midwife, birth educator, or lactation educator. The second element, inclusion and integration of partners, especially Black men or masculine presenting partners in care provision, including communication, information sharing, interactions, decision making, and documentation and dissemination of healthcare information during patient handoffs, patient sign-outs, and in the electronic or paper health records. The third element, having support, protection, and advocacy that is specific and loyal exclusively to the Black mother and birthing person with no association or affiliation to the hospital or healthcare team. Black mothers and birthing people believe kinship shows up in clinical and social interactions. These are the measures, right? As there are four things the way they show up: increased perception and experience of belonging, psychological safety and connectedness, cultural, social, and physical safety and trust. For Black mothers and birthing people, they're given and chosen kinship and additional community support persons. The second way to measure, having mechanisms or strategies of resistance and resilience in place to communicate and reinforce the rights, priorities, needs, and wishes of the Black mother and birthing person. The third measure, having accountability and oversight, meanings, measurements, and mechanisms of action, such as reporting, response, reconciliation, established in writing within hospitals and health systems for practicing informed consent and informed refusal with Black mothers and birthing people and their chosen and given kinship with oral or written authorization by Black mothers and birthing people. And the fourth measure of kinship, having accountability and oversight meanings, measurements, and mechanisms of action. Again, reporting, response, and reconciliation. Established in writing within hospitals and health systems on acknowledging, supporting, and incorporating the capacity and capability of Black mothers and birthing people to optimally heal and recover in community with kin from life challenges, be they external or internal, that impact pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and beyond. The synthesis of the shared meanings and measures for kinship in the provision of hospital based obstetric care establish four overarching themes or manifestations of activating or violating Black mothers' kinship. One, clinician or hospital facilitated parent child separation at birth with subsequent disruption, destabilization, and dismantling of Black parental and family caretaking roles and responsibilities for the Black newborn baby with or without the involvement of family policing systems. Inclusion or exclusion of a Black mother's partner, parent, which would be the grandparent to the baby, or any given or chosen family intervenes in the provision of care and support. Three, learners in the healthcare profession affect the optimal presence and participation of any given or chosen kin, like the Black mother's partner, parent, sibling, or friend, or additional community support person. And four, social networks or non peers as interveners and advocates. Like the unintended yet impactful physician facilitated parent separation at birth, due to clinical iatrogenesis and without the involvement of family policing services in the chapter opening, another Black mother shared her experience of preventing undesired parent child separation in the middle of the night. For context, as a focus group interviewer and facilitator, I asked Black mothers if anyone felt they had received too much or too little care during the immediate postpartum period of their childbirth hospitalization. A Black mother in Oakland who experienced a hospital water birth, Gabrielle. Oh, and these names are like fake names, so anonymous. So Gabrielle is who I'm calling this person. So, a Black mother in Oakland who experienced a hospital water birth, Gabrielle, expressed she felt like the postpartum care and attention was inadequate. After the hospital postpartum nurses discovered she knew how to breastfeed and confirmed optimal breastfeeding, the nurses no longer seemed interested in providing any additional care or attention. However, during the middle of the night, the postpartum nurse discovered co sleeping, specifically bed sharing between Gabrielle and her newborn baby girl. At that point, the hospital postpartum nursing team regained interest in Gabrielle and her baby. I felt like I had too little care because, the nurses thought she knows how to breastfeed. They came in and asked if I was breastfeeding. Okay. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Then after that, it was like they checked on me when they wanted to. They left me alone. They came in the middle of the night and tried to take her one time. Sorry, let me rephrase it. Let me start over. I felt like I had too little care because the nurses thought she knows how to breastfeed. They came in and asked if I was breastfeeding. Okay. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Then after that, it was like they checked on me when they wanted to. They left me alone. They came in the middle of the night and tried to take her one time because I was sleeping in the bed with her, and they stressed that you can't sleep in the bed with the baby, which I was totally against. So we argued about that. And then afterwards, they never came in there. I felt like once they saw me breastfeeding, cool, but I was so defiant against her to be put in the little thing, they just left me alone. Without providing a discourse on the science and safety of different co sleeping behaviors, such as bed sharing or surface sharing, room sharing, or rooming in, and rather focusing on critiquing and judging the Black mother's behavior and choices, this chapter applies a Black feminist hermeneutic phenomenological analysis of the lived experience of childbirth hospitalization and meaning making of quality as measured by affirming or violating kinship through the written birth narratives of Black mothers. The object of critique then becomes the impact of the hospital postpartum nurse's initial reaction to the discovery of co-sleeping and the subsequent series of harmful responses in which the postpartum nurse's goal was to facilitate kinship disruption as felt and experienced by Gabrielle. The discovery of a successful breastfeeding Black mother by a team of hospital postpartum nurses first resulted in neglect, dismissiveness, and disrespect during the immediate postpartum period, which Davis describes as ignoring or dismissing a Black mother's expressed need for reproductive help or care and or treating them with disdain. During one of the most powerful times to promote Black mother child vitality as um, systematic acts of refusal and resistance against system drivers of the 53% of pregnancy related deaths that occur between postpartum day 7 and 365, the hospital system and postpartum team abandoned the Black mother and her baby. And I quote, then after that, it was like they checked on me when they wanted to. They left me alone, according to Gabrielle. A more meaningful use of the immediate postpartum period would be to apply and integrate the Scott and Davis 2022 Building and Bridging Black Futures Beyond Birth model of postpartum care, a 12-step Black woman person first approach, which offers a more humane and holistic model of culturally affirming and clinically responsive postpartum care. Integration of this Black feminist model of care during the immediate postpartum nurse evaluation and provision would provide enhanced insights into how the Black mother views herself, her reproducing and life sustaining body, and her kinship roles, including being a Black mother in relationship to her postpartum healing and recovery. The postpartum nurse had the opportunity to explore the desires and intentions of rest and sleeping for Gabrielle and her baby, as determined and understood by Gabrielle, in a non threatening, non confrontational, and non judgmental manner. Instead, the postpartum nurse's response and impact to discovering co sleeping conjures ancestral and contemporary memories of the forced removal of Black children from their Black mothers, fathers, and families, and the forced disruption and destabilization of Black family lives and relations. They came in the middle of the night and tried to take her one time. Reads like an excerpt from a Black slave narrative or a sci fi film that mixes the genre of war and horror. As previously described in Chapter 2, they would be defined as plantation owners, overseers, or slave catchers during the antebellum period. In modern times, they means nurses, physicians, social workers, case managers, or CPS. In the case of Dominique and Gabrielle, kinship disruption manifested as the actual or threat of system clinician facilitated parent child separation without involvement of family policing systems. Instead of involving the state, the medical industrial complex exerts control and dominance over the placement of Black babies during the immediate postpartum, triggered by a clinical finding or a clinician's concern for the welfare of the baby, as defined for, by, and with clinicians in the health system. The medical industrial complex continues to exclusively define, value, and shape newborn safety and well being before, during, and after pregnancy and childbirth without ethical and equitable participation by or participation with, excuse me, without ethical or equitable participation by or partnership with patients, particularly Black mothers and birthing people, and their given and chosen kin. Therefore, the development and validation of new quality and patient safety theories, domains, measures defined for and by Black um, patient community and content experts are vital to disrupting epistemic injustice, testimonial injustice, and hermeneutical injustice. Designing and implementing system or clinician centric metrics or protocols without the interrogation of patient caregiver community identified and defined unintended or hidden negative consequences can potentially generate new and or exacerbate existing quality, patient safety, and human rights violations. In response to the postpartum nurse's threat to forcibly remove the newborn from Gabrielle's arms and bed and facilitate forced Black mother child separation within the confines of the postpartum room and without an exploratory conversation or involvement of family policing systems, Gabrielle resisted and refused. Gabrielle stood her ground and defied the nurse's authority to facilitate iatrogenic parent child separation. We were almost there. And then afterwards, they never came in there. I felt like once they saw me breastfeeding, cool, and I was so defiant against her, my baby girl, to be put in that little thing, the small crib next to Gabrielle's bed, they just left me alone. And yet again, the unexpected behavior of optimal breastfeeding and asserting one's autonomy repelled any future supportive or care based interactions, evaluations, or communication. The postpartum nurse's behaviors in the day and night may reflect hidden institutional policies that determine standards of care. However, the standardization of obstetric care in the US is deeply embedded in anti Black racism and anti Black misogyny or misogynoir, as explained and detailed in Chapter 2. Moving from system or clinician facilitated or iatrogenic kinship disruption to iatrogenic delayed kinship reunification, a Black mother in the Los Angeles focus group shared her experience of another unexplained and hidden policy whereby postpartum and NICU nurses required Aaliyah to demonstrate competency in walking independently after cesarean birth prior to being able to hold her baby. One must interrogate the evidence requiring a Black mother who endured a major abdominal surgery to demonstrate walking proficiency to gain the privilege to sit down and hold her newborn baby. The Black mother's own mother, the maternal grandmother, was present with her. If the unsubstantiated hospital policy was that at least one person must demonstrate proficiency in independent ambulation, then the presence of the maternal grandmother was sufficient. Therefore, the system or clinician facilitated decision to sustain parent child separation in this situation served no higher purpose than to reinforce a hierarchy of power that resulted in social control and dominance over a Black mother's right to parent, visit, nurture, bond, attach, and hold her existing child. Such social control, dominance, and disruption of kinship reunification violate one of the core tenets of reproductive justice. Clearly, the communication and information exchange between the nursing team across two different yet interrelated departments lacked humanity, empathy, and optimal explanation and justification. Aaliyah. When you talked about the walking around, my thing was they wouldn't let me hold her if I couldn't walk. And then there, yeah, you only could sit with her. I was sitting. My mom wheeled me in there. Dr. Scott, this is me talking. If you couldn't walk in the NICU, they didn't want you to hold her? Aaliyah, yeah. I'm like, why do I need to walk to hold her? I'm sitting down. Dr. Scott, why do you have to walk with her in the NICU unit? I'll pause. The reason why I put dialogue and not just excerpts in my book, because I wanted people to get a sense of like, this is a dialogue happening. There was no way I could not deeply engage this mother about, and I'm not going to say a cuss word, but it is cuss wordable. But the FUCKERY of telling someone they can't hold their baby because they can't walk, but there's an adult next to them who can walk, but you want her to sit down with the baby. Like, just imagine if we're feeling that this happened to a Black mother. So I'm losing it while I'm in the focus group. And I'm like, we just got to talk this out. So back to Dr. Scott. Why do you have to walk with her in the NICU unit? Aaliyah. So my mom pushed me in the wheelchair after me not seeing her child for over a day, an entire day, because she was hanging off the bed, right? That's what they do after a C-section, cesarean birth. They put me back on bed rest after it happened. So when they were like, okay, you can feed her, but you can't hold her, I'm like, why? And they were like, because you have to be able to walk. And I'm like, well, when they give people their baby and they just had them, aren't they laying in the bed? Dr. Scott, exactly. And I've seen them roll people in their wheelchair into the NICU. Now, here are the other mothers that come into play. Shantae, yeah. Tony, yeah. Aaliyah, yeah. I was rolled on in there. They would not let me hold her. So then the next time I went back, which is like that night, and it was a different nurse. That nurse, yeah, she closed the curtain and handed me my baby and was like, are you fine? And I'm just like, I don't understand. Like, who makes these rules? Dr. Scott, rules. Yup. Aaliyah. And having just changed them, why is not everyone on the same page? Shante, they're not. Tony, you guys all work the same. Aaliyah, they have their own beliefs, and then you put them all on me. And it's like the nurses, some are more informed, some don't care. They don't. Without focusing on the reasons why Aaliyah needed additional support to ambulate and immediately judging Aaliyah, the more appropriate response is an ethical, legal, and scientific interrogation of hospital systems weaponizing the NICU as the new chattel slavery. An online dictionary definition of chattel slavery reads as follows: the enslaving and owning of human beings and their offspring as property, able to be bought, sold, and forced to work without wages, as distinguished from other systems of forced, unpaid, or low wage labor, also considered to be slavery. The hospital system's pattern of forced removals of Black newborn babies to occupy empty special care nursery or NICU beds without the need to involve family policing systems, combined with the system's delay, denial, or disruption of Black mother child reunification, bonding, and attachment seems oddly reminiscent of the ideologies, practices, and impacts of chattel slavery. What about demonstrating ambulation competency signifies caretaking competency? Even if the hospital documented a valid concern with evidential material to question the Black mother's capacity to independently care for her newborn in the immediate postpartum period, where was the corresponding psychiatric or social worker evaluation or a hospital initiated adult supervision? Where was the more humanistic and empathetic approach to ask Aaliyah's mother, the maternal grandmother to the Black baby, to supervise Black mother child reunification and attachment? Meaning making of Black women's lived experiences of childbirth hospitalization during the provision of contemporary hospital based obstetrics feels more and more like the new chattel slavery. Iatrogenic parent child separation, independent of intention, is a valid harm as expressed and experienced differently by a people forced to endure disproportionate rates of kidnapping, human trafficking, child slavery, mass incarceration, and CPS involvement. Ahistorical and atheoretical approaches to obstetric care in medicine, nursing, social services, and mental health that are also void of empathy and humanity justify and perpetuate iatrogenic Black parent child separation and isolation through multiple components in the continuum of hospital based maternity and perinatal services. Iatrogenic parent child separation within the boundaries of hospitals, even without involvement of family policing systems, leads to disrupted kinship and other forms of emotional harms, including distress, anxiety, and fear. You can take a little breath, breathing in and out. That's actually one of my favorite chapters, if you can't tell. I go in hard. What are your thoughts? I can read from the screen if anybody wants to come off of mute or come off of video. This is our time to have a little discussion. We can start with thank you for also participating and adding your comments. But we can start wherever you all want to start.
So, Dr.
Anybody?
Scott, I think for
Yes.
me, what it highlights is how bias is often illogical
Absolutely.
because why do I have to walk? And how frequently are mamas taken in the wheelchair? I mean, I spent 40 years in the NICU, right? And 99% of them come in a wheelchair for whatever reason. So it's like that doesn't make sense. And so why in that moment with that mama
Yes.
there was already something that they and that's the part that's heartbreaking is
Yeah.
because it's not based in science, it's not based in logic, it's not
No.
based, and yet people are exposed to it.
Absolutely. Hi, Marie. Thank you for joining.
Hi, Dr. Scott.
Thank you. Absolutely. So the why, people are like, why we always say it's racism? But imagine if people were to just take a survey of this behavior. Like how, among people who underwent a cesarean birth, like how likely or how frequently were you assisted in a wheelchair to go visit your child in the NICU?
Mhm.
And look at those rates of assistance and then disaggregate that data by race, by insurance. I'm just saying stats. Like you can begin to see, we can predict because if the hospital team says, oh, we don't do that, but they'll say, well, you do because a group of people are experiencing that. Why don't you conduct an evaluation? Let's do a quality improvement check. Now, how would a hospital actually do that? But that's really the type of ways that we can identify discriminatory practices are these types of quality evaluations, right? Like that's
Mhm.
why for me, when people say they want to reduce the cesarean birth rate, I get that. I'm not saying let's not do that. But just because we reduce the cesarean birth rate doesn't mean that we're reducing acts of harm, right? When we are looking at the harm that's defined based on experience of care, a feeling of the care, and not just um, this outcome, this physical outcome that the hospital feels some pride in, that they can say, oh, we reduced our cesarean birth rate by X. And then you're like, how many mothers feel degraded, dehumanized,
Mhm.
discarded? So you can applaud a reduction in cesarean birth rate, but you still have high rates of dehumanizing care. And that's what I really would love to see as a revolution in quality and patient safety is this interrogation that outcome measures alone cannot be the only way that we evaluate quality or that we aspire to quality or that we assign these ratings of high performing hospitals just because you have the lowest cesarean birth rate. How whole do people feel when they birth at your hospital, even if they have a vaginal birth?
Right. So very true.
Yeah, that's why I do the work that I do because I mean, for me, it's like, how can I sit through these stories and write this whole book and I not snap off on my own people as OBGYNs because again, like these are people's feelings, right? This is their lives. How people experience their birth is going to determine if they return, like how they re-engage the healthcare system, not just for themselves, but for their partners, their grandparents, right? That's why I love that kinship is a whole metric, is a whole quality, because the systems and payers need to understand how powerful birth really is, right? And its impact on how entire families and communities engage the healthcare system after a birth. Anybody else want to share? Or I can read from the
Thank
comments. Who is
Mhm.
that?
Evening. Hello, Dr. Scott. My name is Cortez,
Okay.
and I am a registered nurse
Yes.
um, who is a doula,
Yes.
and I'm going back to school to become a certified nurse's midwife.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, thank you for your book.
Thank you.
And Um, I can't wait to get into this, and I'm gonna have to find a way to pull this into my organization, and we actually have some
Oh,
read.
yeah. I would
Um,
love, yes, yes.
so I'm the advocacy and outreach coordinator at Southern Birth Justice Network here in Miami, Florida, and we are the founders. Our executive director founded the framework, Birth Justice.
Yes, Jamara.
Yes, Jamara. That's my
Yay.
sister and my boss. Um,
Yeah, did I, were you, I was there. So, okay, pause. I was there for my birthday last year. I actually came to you all site and had like a site visit with one of your
okay.
meetings. But Jamar and I both won the inaugural awards that BMMA is given now, but we both got them where she got the midwifery award and I got the research award. But yes, I love
Okay, so
Jamara.
when you
So
coming
thank you
back
for
to
being here.
visit us?
I know. I mean, so yeah, I know when you, yes, as you were talking, and then when you said, Southern Birth Justice, and then Jamar, I love you all. You all are doing amazing things in just Miami and beyond. Yeah.
Thank you. So the birth center should be open in 2027. So you got to come back.
Nice.
Yes,
Yay.
yes, yes. So we know each other, right?
I mean, we have
We
to
most
because
definitely
yeah, no,
know
but
each
I
other's
I
work.
came for my birthday in January of last year, and then I hung out with Jamara. She came and got me. Then we went to some place in Miami that has like all the murals. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes,
we
yes.
went
In
there.
Overtown. And
Yep.
the
Yes.
walls, the Wynwood
Yes.
wall.
Yes. And then we went to
Yes.
get, I think we got, I don't know if it was Caribbean food or,
Yeah, most
yeah.
definitely. It probably was. Yeah.
Yes, we were doing all of that. Yeah. So we hung out. So, I had a wonderful time. Yeah.
Good. We can't wait to have you back.
Excited.
Um,
Mhm.
so this is so you know our framework and you know where we
Yes.
stand, where we stand.
Yes.
So we did get the doula pilot program into Jackson Memorial Hospital, but
Yay.
they pulled out.
Oh,
It didn't last. And
oh
it was
no.
because we did cut their cesarean rate, like by
Mhm.
major numbers.
Of course you did.
Like you said, that wasn't the point. The challenge with Jackson, um, it's just a business entity, but
Yes.
85% of their staff, doctors, residents, everybody had to be trained in birth justice.
Yes.
That ain't what they wanted.
Of course. That's
So
yes. You are
you
proof of
got
it. Yeah. Yep.
Jamara
Hmm.
teaching birth justice 101. Them
Absolutely.
races, that system, them doctors did not want that.
Of course
And
they.
so
Yes.
it was
Hmm.
very violent, even for her,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
even go in and teach.
Wow.
So this is the piece that no one wants to talk about, right? It's the
Absolutely.
big
Yeah.
elephant in the room, the red elephant in the room. It's all the elephants in the room. It's racism. Bottom line, 80% of these maternal deaths are preventable. So why are
Yeah.
they dying? Because of
Yeah.
racism, right? And your
Mhm.
racism becomes your bias. And then you operate just as you read in this chapter. How dare you come in my room and try to separate me and my child? Like, are you serious? How dare you tell me that I can't hold my baby because I just had a C-section? Like, who the hell are you people? So, as
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
doula and a midwife to be, I'm like, come to a birth
Yeah.
center, honey. Come have this baby at
I
home
know, but so
because
how do
we
we?
are the
Yeah.
masters of normal,
Yeah.
right?
You
Doulas,
are
birth workers, midwife, we are the
midwives.
masters of normal.
Yes.
So, if it's a normal birth, why you going up in there with all them interventions?
I know. Yeah. I mean, it's going to require. Well, keep sharing because I don't want to interrupt you, but I agree with you.
So,
Yeah.
these
And
are
the
the
hard
things
part around
even
that is
for
all the
my
states. I was just going to say the hard part around that is all the states that don't legalize home
That's what I was
births
gonna
or
say.
birth
That
centers,
there's
and
a yeah,
that's a large swath of our population.
it
And you're
is.
so right. I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, but about how
okay.
practitioners resist anti-bias training.
Yes.
Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
Especially
like so,
the old
98%
white
of.
boy crew.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
let's be
what
honest, it's the
it's
old
us
white boy
too.
crew.
But Cortez, it's us too, Cortez. There are a lot of I okay, so I'm very grateful that Dr. Farrington is here. This is my sixth series reading. No Black OBGYN has ever participated in any of these sessions. She's the first one.
Oh,
She's
wow.
happily retired and she's online. Yeah, so um there are many, what am I trying to say? There are many overseers in this work that look like us who benefit from, right, these harms. And yes, it's racism. It's gender discrimination, misogyny, and then misogynoir. Because
Oh,
the
yeah. Oh,
CDC
yeah.
data from 2022 said that discrimination played a role in 1 in every 3 pregnancy-related deaths. So 30% of the deaths were due to discrimination. So race, gender,
Yeah.
fat phobia, right? Insurance, classism, like those are, and some of our communities are navigating, right?
Geriatric
These
pregnancies.
exactly all of
Yes.
those things.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you all being present and talking because I really have thought something was like wrong with me because of the
Well,
lack of support. But you all being present here today and your response to what I'm reading and the way you responded in a very humane and life affirming way, it has been a really difficult time period. Like I shared with Miss Angel, I'm pretty sure I have a mark. I mean, I know I'm covered spiritually, but I do believe I'm undergoing a form of retaliation right now where I'm not able to do certain things or become fully employed or work in certain spaces because of me critiquing obstetrics and calling out obstetric racism and then having this book. You heard the dialogue and the stories, like it's very powerful to have dialogue and not just one excerpt. And the way that Black mothers were so authentic and transparent and open. Um, there's a lot that I left out of my book because I was just like, no one's going to read this book because it's really violent the way the hospital teams were behaving towards
yeah.
Black mothers birthing
Yeah.
people and the babies and their partners and their grandmothers and their
Most
sisters. Like it's
definitely.
all in the book.
So here's the thing. We here in Miami, I don't know if you have heard, but we have a maternal infant health desert now because, well, yeah, North Shore closed down their maternity ward. Jackson South just closed down their maternity ward.
Mhm.
So what has occurred is when you're talking about the chickens coming home to roost,
Mm.
there was a lot of money in OBGYNs, right? In the hospitals. That's not so anymore. With a new administration, with just years
Oh,
of
yeah.
just cutbacks and people
Mhm.
getting a little bit more educated and making decisions,
Uh-huh.
to have their babies at home or in birth centers, it's just no more money in it, right?
Yeah.
So it gives us an opportunity to fill the gaps, but also the 6 weeks ban, right? In most states, but here
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Florida really gives us an opportunity to fill the gaps, right? um, and just teaching people our birth justice bill of rights and
Yes.
knowing that they have all these autonomies,
Yes.
and the fighting. But honey, we go heads up. There are doctors that you'll go into a hospital as a doula and they'll be like, you're not wanted and you're not needed, get out of the room,
Well,
right?
In Nashville, there are hospitals who have now required doulas. Now, so I feel like mind you, that's what Black people say. Mind you, Black families, individuals or families will, right, negotiate price, right, the services, all that with the doula. That is independent of a hospital. I
Yeah.
have a friend here, Tansy Hill, who's a doula, runs her own business, Birth Manifesta. She notified me a couple of months ago that there are certain hospitals, like the bigger hospitals, now require doulas to register as a vendor of the
Yes.
hospital
That's
to
the
even be
H
able to be present. Is it
that's the
HCA?
HCA hospitals.
Yes,
Yeah, that
that's
came
what's
out a
happening.
couple of months
Oh,
ago.
we have to
Yep.
So
talk. We have to definitely
it's
talk.
just
So
another barrier.
it
And did
is.
she tell you, Dr. Scott, how much it costs?
No, I don't know what the registration is. No.
Um,
There is a fee.
Oh,
as a
there's yeah, you have
vendor,
to pay a fee. Yes.
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 Oh,
And
yes.
if
They
you
say you're paying for background check.
but what are
I
they
don't know what HCA's is, but a lot of the major hospitals, it's $700, and that's
oh
for one hospital system. So, say for example, if I'm in Houston, I have to register with
yeah,
Memorial
that's what
Hermann.
Tansy
I
told me
have to
that you have
register
to
with
keep
Baylor, Texas
yes.
Children's. I
Yeah.
have to
Every
register
hospital
with
Oh,
as
so
a vendor.
I
Yes.
asked Elephant Circle, human rights attorneys. I was like, I feel like there's some, what is the law? Is there like there's some business law or some tax like that? Seems like that's double dipping. I don't know the eloquent language of it, but I feel like there's an opportunity to pursue some litigation around the legality of a hospital doing that. Because I don't understand how you can require someone to register to be a vendor. The hospital's not paying the doula for the service that they're providing to the families. Is it, you
Yeah,
know,
you picked up a great point, and the reality is this:
hmm
when you're a community doula, like for real, you're not trying to get caught up in any of that foolishness.
I know,
Um,
I know.
yet, yet it does happen, right? So
hmm
I even look at the privilege that I have already being a nurse, right? But
Yes.
Mhm.
it's very challenging when I'm in the hospital as a doula because I have to sit on my hands when I see stuff, right? I can't operate
Mhm.
under my registered nurse license in the state of Florida, right? I am
Mhm.
operating as a certified doula, as a certified birth justice advocacy doula, and I have to go to what my client and I have practiced before getting there. And those are the Q words and the code words, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because they have to advocate for themselves. And I don't want to ever have an atmosphere of retaliation with
Yeah.
my clients while I'm there. Yet, or in addition to when you talk about the spiritual thing of this, and it's so God that you said it, because I was getting ready to speak into your life, and I know the Lord will let me do it in a second. Um, because I have worked at that hospital as a nurse.
Mhm.
I have been a patient at that
Mm.
hospital as a nurse,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So God has already tilled the soil for me. Um,
Mhm.
so when I walk in there, they already know, not her.
Mhm.
And so I don't have those issues and those problems.
Mhm.
Yet, as a group, most definitely, our doulas have had issues. Well, first of all, they kicked the program out, right?
Yeah.
They gave the money back just to not have the program.
They
Yes.
returned the funding? Wow. I mean,
Oh,
so
yes,
that
most
happened to
definitely.
me as well. A hospital
Yeah. Yeah.
was going to participate in the implementation of the Primo scale and
Mhm.
for me to conduct interviews to pay like 30 patients, 30 community members, and like 30 staff. They were all for it. They actually paid me 50% of this little contract. And then this would have been December. So right after Inauguration Day 2025, I got an email saying that the hospital, actually the community partner said, we want to give you heads up on what the hospital is about to do because they haven't
Yeah.
told you yet. Now they already paid me 50%. They said we're not doing it. And didn't even
Yeah.
care they already gave me 50% of the money. They're like, yeah, we have found that we need to redirect our attention to other things.
Mhm.
And I professionally said, do not ever use that as an excuse that this is the moment to actually address such a racism. So you saying this is not the moment is actually one of the cruelest, inhumane, most violent things you could say to me and your community who already thinks I'm going to be doing this work.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that
What they should have said is we're afraid of losing our Medicaid reimbursement.
I mean,
I mean, like,
honestly,
I'm not crazy.
the
We
fears
all
have
know that's
been,
why.
yeah, it's
We all
been
know that's
that
why.
fear, and it's been the
Well,
fear
guess
where
what?
the HR people will say, Are you going to fire people?" And I said, I don't have capacity to fire your
See?
staff. I do have capacity to identify which of your staff and clinicians have behaviors and language that that reproduce harm as
Yeah.
defined by such racism. It's up to you whether how you will like create a professional, was it PIP, a professional? Is it something improvement plan
Yeah.
um
Happy.
to guide them, yeah, to guide them to not be as harmful as they are. But I don't have the power to fire anybody. I just have the power to listen to your own staff share with me their observations of harm. And it's your own staff, your own patients, your own community people that are telling me these things. And so it's been, I actually, and I know we're at time in 3 minutes. Um, I have a lot of ideas around how to just create things in community around, especially around the data and us creating our own data infrastructure, us asking the community to collect the health records on our behalf. Like there is like what do we gain by only allowing these federal organizations at the state and national level to collect our own death certificates, birth certificates, our own records to generate a data set and then conduct the data analysis and to tell us what we already know ourselves as a community. Like, what if we did that? Like, why are we relying on those systems to regurgitate
Hey,
data
Dr.
back to
You gotta
us in a
talk
very inhuman
offline.
way? Huh?
We
So
gotta talk.
what you're saying, Dr. Scott, is that instead of relying on like the MMRCs, that as a community, when there is a death, we should.
MMRC, we should, why? I mean, because we do it, right? We do tell each other what's going on. We have our own internal ways of incubating that experience and those stories. Why are we not telling that story? Like, why are we waiting for a group of people appointed by a governor or commission of health and wait
Mhm.
for data 5, 6 years later? Like, why do
And we
we
don't
have,
have to.
right? I
We
know,
can
that's
do
what I'm
it.
I think
saying.
that's what
We're
she's saying.
collecting stories every day, all day. That's a part of SBJN. We're story collectors, right?
Yeah,
So it's
and
just
like a
everybody
database that collects the story, but also
coming
gives you the
together.
ability to extrapolate what hospital,
Yes.
what
Lorraine, so
provider, what,
I would like to go
because,
from stories to scores to strategies. Like we can't just
yeah,
collect the story. We have to interpret the story with a framework
Yep,
that it's not using the master's language or tools, but
exactly.
in the master
Exactly.
system, we have to have a framework, which is why I created the Sacred Birth Quality Framework, because we can go from a story to saying these are the ways in which quality is violated when quality is defined by the community. And you all, the system calls themselves patient centered and evidence based and data driven. That meets the criteria of sacred birth. So instead of us saying, oh, here's the story, okay, let's map the story based on these quality domains and then offer them strategies. And what would it look like to, again, like you said, have our own data set of stories, of scores of performance, of strategies, and we report to the insurance company, right, what these hospitals are doing, because right now the insurance company only gets claims data. They only get numbers to reflect the diagnosis and the procedure. They have no idea around right the totality of harm that's happening because they only get numbers of measures that the system determined. None of it comes from community or patients. So that would be what I would like to do. But I know we're at time. I do want
So
to.
let me
Oh,
just for
yes.
one second, I dropped
Mhm.
my information in the chat. I need
Oh,
to
thank
hook
you.
you up with Dr. Patricia Jajan. She is here in Miami. She started story collecting, um, and she had an RBI for University of Miami and Jackson Hospital. Well, DEI, they cut her money and placed it elsewhere. So I want to connect you to. I've
Hmm.
sent her a couple grants
Hmm.
opportunities since they took her money.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, y'all need to connect because I think you can most definitely do some stuff there. And then we need to get you woven into SBJN in the work that you're doing as well. So I can't wait to send Jamara a text.
I know. Why am
Uh,
I on my phone now about to text her? Is how do you spell Cortez? COR? Or am I making it
yeah,
up? No. COR, is it TZ
yeah,
or TSS? Okay. Got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, well, let's blow her phone up. But I would love to continue to do work with you all and everybody because it is 2 minutes after the hour. Thank you so much. I do want to this question about um I don't know if nurses and obstetric providers need to be abolished, but they are. We have to figure out a way of what does this cocoon of safety and protection looks like for our mother, for the 98% of people who still have to birth in a hospital setting. I do fully support home birth and birthing centers. That's 2% of the population, although the fastest growing group are Black mothers and birthing people. 98% of people still have to birth in the hospital. So that's why I'm so committed to like what can we do for people who still have to go there by forced choice or coercion. Yes, all they had to do was support breastfeeding, but they took her baby away. Um, I agree with that. Not that I don't have to agree, but like these are the things that are coming out that we don't always get to hear in a collective in a book like this. And so I do again appreciate you all affirming the work and validating the stories of the 36 Black mothers from Oakland and LA. Um, yeah, that's the thing that here, like staff must teach and not dictate. If only staff and clinicians knew that. There's always like I see myself as a facilitator. I don't dictate, right, people's decisions about their bodies or their care. I facilitate, I provide information and optimize people's autonomy, agency, and self-efficacy. But a lot of people like being in the role of physician or in the dominant role for the purpose of control. Um, Yes, this vision of describing a baby that's in the incubator, um, and the tubes, like it came to me when I was in home in like 2020, 22, actually it was in Oakland. I think it was like 2021 when I first started writing this chapter. And I had the vision and the feeling like this is a new form of chattel slavery, where you know, we've gone to making up reasons to put a baby in an incubator. And I have more stories about this in the book where it almost feels like as soon as a Black baby is born, they find some reason to put them in special care or the NICU. And it's a billion-dollar business.
This was the comment that I had actually made, and
Oh,
it
yes.
just it actually it just goes to show how we're still on the plantation.
Yeah.
We never left the plantation.
Absolutely, and thank you for that comment. There was a mother from, I can't remember if it was Oakland or LA, but when critics of my work and Dr. Donna Davis's work ask why that they feel that the use of obstetrical racism is too strong. And I share a quote where a Black mother says after her birth, she felt like what did she say? Like um, she gave birth and went back to the field to keep picking the cotton. Like that's how she felt. The way the hospital treated her after her birth reminded her that all she really was a host, right? Was a baby producer, right? When you can't import slaves, you birth slaves, right? So all she did was birth another baby and she went back to the field. And I'm like, she said that without even knowing that obstetric racism existed. And so this framework of obstetric racism, that's a theory and phenomenon of a type of reproductive justice, is what I translated into this obstetric quality framework because there was nothing that existed that captured the extent of the harm and violence. Again, people want to call it respectful care. There's a place and time for that, but you can't get to respect when we're not even treated as a human.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to be addressed. And thank you for this comment as well. Chapter 2 goes into great detail about um, neutral apathy and detached concern is how I describe the attitude and behavior and culture of obstetric care. And it all originates from antebellum practices of anti-Black racism and anti-Black misogyny. So I write about this, which is why the book chapters don't go in the order of the word sacred because I went from the introduction to the racism chapter first. So that would ground how I contextualize this care as an extension of chattel slavery. And there's the last one. Oh, did I mess up? There was another comment. Oh, here we go. Heartbreaking to hear women say they will not. Yeah, yes, we interviewed. There was a center in Boston that will remain nameless. Um, she did an interview, and her birth experience was so difficult, even just hearing it, but her talking about it, that she did make the decision to never get pregnant again or give birth because of how horrifying her care was. And it actually, when she talks about it, I mean, yeah, I cannot believe people with licenses, like licensed healthcare professionals, behaved in the way that they did to her. Um, but thank you all for joining. I did not think anybody was going to be here. There's the book, there's the code.